Evening, guys. Welcome to Football Brownie. Hope you're well, keeping safe, keeping each other safe, and spreading love during this pandemic because we all need a little bit of loving, guys. Before I go any further, check the Twitter, the ticker below. Please like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Remember, subscription is free. Try something that with a list. And if you haven't done it already, why the hell haven't you done it? So get it on, guys, yeah? Right, tonight, I'm really excited. I am really, really excited. This is the first of a channel, Thursday night show. I hope it'll be a regular thing of the world of football. Basically, the idea I want to do is I originally set up a channel to educate the younger generation of football fans because I'm a firm believer that if you don't know the history, then how can you change the future for the better? Let's be honest, football is a world language, and younger football fans these days need to realise that the world of football is more than the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, or the Bundesliga. Tonight, we're focusing on a very, very proud country of Romania. Some would say Romania. But I'm honoured to be joined by Filip of Romanian Football Hub on YouTube. But his main social media platform is Twitter. So, Filip, what is your Twitter handle, my friend?
Thanks for the introduction. It's ROFTBL, so Row Football on Twitter. You can just search Romanian football. I'll probably be one of the first drop downs there. So I'm on Twitter. That's my account, ROFTBL.
No problem at all. Thank you very much again for agreeing to be the first guest of hopefully our new show. Right, Filip, we started talking. Unfortunately, on my side, when I uploaded the video when Wales lost 5-1 to Romania in Bucharest in 1993, and we had a little bit of a laugh on that. But even though you're younger than me, you have more historical knowledge about Romanian football than I do. Romania had in my opinion, Romania had a golden generation in the 1990s. They should have progressed further in the major tournaments. But it all started earlier than that. 1984, really. I would you agree with me on that? 84 Euros?
I'd say Euro 84 was one of the, after we had a big dry spell since World Cup 1970. When we were in the group of death with Brazil, Czechoslovakia, and England, of course, the holders. Since then, we hadn't gone to a final tournament. And back then, it was also very difficult. There was only, 2 groups at the final tournament, 8 teams, right? So to make Euro 84 was a pretty significant achievement at that time, I think. And it was around the same time that our league started to have results in Europe. We had Craiova, my team, right here.
He's wearing a Craiova. Lorena, he's wearing a Craiova top shirt, yeah? Sorry. Hang on. My best friend's girlfriend says, Bienvenite Felipe. Bienvenite Felipe, I think.
And
que face.
Yeah.
He's laughing. Okay. No worries. Anyway, sorry, my friend. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, basically that team was very special. We called it Craiova Maxima was the nickname of the team, right?
Okay.
And it was such a good team because we were stacked, in defense. The keeper was the national keeper. Basically, that 14 players from that Euro 84 team were from Craiova. So that kind of tells you the pedigree of that team at the time. And they were beating Leeds United 4-0. 2-0 at home, 2-0 away. I think they were the first Romanian club or even Eastern European club to win in England, or something like that. And yeah, it's impressive because we also knocked out Fiorentina, Kaiserslautern, Bordeaux, the French club. A lot of, at that time were quite good clubs. No disrespect to them today, but at the time they were performing at an even higher level.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea. We reached the semifinals and lost to Benfica without even losing. We lost. It was just 0-0 and 1-1 away goals. So.
And I think it's important, Felipe, to highlight the issues of European football at that time. Back in them days, you had the Iron Curtain, obviously the Eastern Bloc countries. You also had the free foreigner rule for Western European clubs could not have any more than 3 foreigners, unlike these days. But
yeah.
because it had because you also had the Eastern Bloc, players found it very, very tough to play outside of a country. I mean, if you look at, I'm thinking in the 1980s, you only, I'm 42 years old, unfortunately, but I'm thinking the only player I can remember from the Eastern Bloc playing for a rich Western European side was Polish great player, Polish great player, Boniek, playing for Juventus. In the 85 European Cup. I cannot remember any other. If you want to go further back in time, Puskás refused after the Hungarian Revolution in 1958. He refused to go back to Hungary, so he had Spanish citizenship, which allowed him to play for both Spain and Real Madrid. But it's very, very rare would you have an Eastern European player playing outside the country at that time.
Yeah, that's true. Like you were saying with the Eastern Bloc, it's the communists normally wouldn't allow their best players to leave because or actually any player really because they're considered national goods.
Yeah.
So and they were the brand kind of the local clubs in Europe. So
yeah.
They didn't want to weaken that or even give an example to others to follow that. So.
Well, that is why, going on from 84, now, unfortunately, the first European Cup final I can remember was 85 with Heysel. Don't really want to go on to what happened there. But as a result of Heysel in 85, English clubs were banned. And we have to all admit that during that time, English clubs were very, very dominant in winning the European Cup for many years prior to that. So you didn't have English clubs taking part. But in 1986, Steaua Bucharest going to Sevilla, I'll be honest with you, it was only the second European final I can remember, but to this day it was the worst European final I can remember. But that Steaua Bucharest, it went to penalties against Barcelona. And the goalkeeper of Steaua Bucharest saved every single Barcelona penalty. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, what's even more incredible than that is that was like the highlight of his career. Like he barely played for the national team. He didn't have a great career, but that was like the absolute highlight of his career. It was unreal what he did for the country and the club. So he's always going to be remembered for that. But in terms of like the greatest goalkeeper for Romania in those days, I'd say the Craiova keeper Lung.
Okay.
Silviu Lung. But yeah, he was amazing that night. And as you say, it wasn't a great final, but actually 3 years later when Steaua returned to the European Cup final, I think they were much better that season, despite losing 4-0 to Milan, one of the greatest Milan sides.
But that was the start. And I know I know it's an easy phrase to pick up, but there's one player within that Steaua team who then progressed to the early 1990s, and Lakatos.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Haji for a second.
No. I personally, as a non-Romanian, I would have thought Lakatos was the one going in the Stout. Did Haji play in the 86 final then?
No, it was 88.
Yeah. But Lakatos played in the 86.
Yeah.
And, he was basically the pioneer, in my opinion. I think Lakatos was a pioneer of the Romanian golden generation of what happened just a few years later. I don't know if you would agree with me on that.
Yeah, he was definitely an underrated player. Very, very good winger, prolific scorer. He has like the most trophies of any Romanian player in history, I think. Mainly with Steaua, but he went abroad for a bit. He went to Oviedo and Fiorentina for I think a season or two. But mainly,
I think by that time, because the Eastern Bloc crumbled in '89. If I'm not, so Lakatos, it was at the end of Lakatos' career really when he went to the likes of Oviedo. That's my opinion. I don't know if you agree on that, but unfortunately, off-field politics destroyed the careers of players like Lakatos, in my opinion, in the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that for quite a few players.
You can.
Because, like, I think I've told you before about Nicolae Dobrin was one of the best dribblers in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And he scored against Real Madrid, knocked them out with tiny Argeș Pitești, like tiny team. No offense to them, but to knock
no.
On his own practically was amazing. And Santiago Bernabeu himself was begging for him. And he only got to play in Gento's testimonial, unfortunately, because of the restrictions. So,
yeah. The restrictions back then were incredible. People, modern day football fans would not understand just how tough it was with the restrictions back then. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a totally different game and different world, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, okay. We're going on a few years. Italia 90. So it's coming to the end of Lakatos' fame as a football fan, and the new generation, the golden generation, is starting to play ball. But if I'm of the opinion, Italia 90 was just a couple of years too early for that golden generation. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I think we still should have progressed a little further. With the penalty shootout against Ireland, but I agree, it didn't really fully culminate until '94.
Yeah. But unfortunately for us Welsh people, we didn't have to wait until 1994. We had to wait until 1993 and the qualifiers in that group, which is basically how we first started. I uploaded a video of the opening qualifier for the World Cup of 1994, and that is when we started talking, Filip, because the opening game was Wales against Romania. And even though Wales had Hughes, Ian Rush, Dean Saunders, Neville Southall in goal, Romania ripped us a new one in the backside, I tell you. And it was 5-1 to Romania. And that, for a non-Romanian, that was the start of that absolute fantastic golden generation of Romanian football.
Yeah, I agree. We had a lot of great players at that time, and it was just the moment that the players started to go abroad, right?
Yeah,
It was
because the wall fell in '89, and then you had Hadji going to Real Madrid or
well,
Brescia?
Real Madrid first, and then Brescia, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And they called that Brescia Romana because it had the manager was Mircea Lucescu, who
Okay.
is a very storied manager, many trophies. One with Shakhtar in 2007, the UEFA Cup. And yeah, so he was the manager, and they had Radu Choyu, who was a striker with 4 goals at the 1994 World Cup,
Yeah,
and then Hadji. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so that
Okay.
was a special
So
team as
you
well.
so you beat us 5-1 in the opening game. Okay.
Yeah.
How Wales got back into how Wales got back into well got back into the group kind of qualifying talk by the end of that qualifier. I actually attended that game, the last game in Cardiff, and I watched it over again. I don't really want to upload it, Filip, I'll be honest with you, because I was in tears the other day just watching it, okay? Right? But I didn't realize until I was there watching it. It's the first game I've ever walked out early of a football game because I knew I was so upset. I was a teenager, I was so upset. But it wasn't until I watched it back I, I realized that how dominant Romania were in that game because Hadji, Rodichoiu, Dimitrescu, Popescu, what an absolute golden generation. And you topped the group on that. You topped the qualifying group on that after that result.
Yeah, and we scored a lot of goals as well. A lot
Yeah.
of goals. Yeah, I believe with Belgium and Belgium also qualified, but we had the best goal difference, so we topped the group. But I mean, these are not pushover teams. Like Wales, as you said, that was a very good team. Czechoslovakia, you know,
Yeah.
they were a very good team.
Czechoslovakia. But you mentioned regarding the '84 qualifiers. Back then, it was so difficult to qualify for a tournament, and even though nowadays we have Bale, I am of the opinion we had a much stronger first 11 back in the day when we played you in Cardiff in '93. But we only didn't qualify because it was so much harder to qualify.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's there's only 8 teams, right? So it's basically like the equivalent of quarterfinals today. So
Yeah.
very limited spots.
Okay. So I'm in tears as a Welshman. I'm in tears, Felipe, and you go to America, 1994. As a Romanian or Romanian dissident or expat, what were your feelings going into that game? Going into that tournament, sorry.
Well, I didn't watch it live, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, looking back, it's easy to say that was our best World Cup. I don't think anybody before the tournament began was expecting that at all. So really, the only disappointment I have to say with that tournament was the way we played against the Swiss in the indoor facility there.
Yeah.
That was that was terrible.
I'm of the opinion. I really am of the opinion that there were so many plus points to having the World Cup in '94 in America. The MLS have kicked on from that, and so on and so forth. But I don't think it benefited. Oh, sorry. I don't think it benefited the European teams going into that World Cup for a number of reasons, and you just highlighted one of them is that playing in a dome basically did not help. I think if the 94 World Cup was played in a European environment and weather conditions as well, can't hide from that fact. Even though Bulgaria got to the semi-final, I am convinced that a European team would have won that 94 World Cup. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, I mean, even despite that result with Switzerland, though, I think we really still played a great tournament. We beat Colombia, who were Pelé predicted to be one of the favorites, but I mean, Pelé has not been very good at predicting things either.
No comment. No comment.
But yeah, I think the match against Argentina was one of the best in World Cup history in terms of end-to-end football, quality goals. It had everything. So even though Maradona didn't play, but
yeah, because
thankfully,
was it before or after Maradona's ban? Because he was banned after that Greece game, wasn't he? In the group.
This was after the ban.
Yeah.
But in 1990, we played Argentina as well, and it was 1-1. And Maradona.
Yeah, no, I remember that because you had Cameroon in the group as well in 1990, and you had Colombia, wasn't it? Colombia was the other one, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. No, actually, I remember that. I mean, 86 was my first World Cup, and I'm of the opinion that no matter how old you are, your first World Cup is always your best World Cup. It's always your favorite World Cup. Yeah. Italia 90 was a bit of a letdown for me, if I'm honest with you. But Group B, where you had Romania, Argentina, Cameroon. Cameroon were incredible. Absolute, dark horses. And I think they finished top on that group because of that.
Yeah.
Right. So we go on to 98. Now, the only thing I can remember in 98 because of I'm trying to word this correctly, and the only thing I remember in 98 World Cup was basically Romania, all the players dying bleached blonde hair. That's all I can remember. They went to, how far did they go? Quarterfinals, was it?
No, that was the round of 16 when we lost to Croatia.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Shuker that scored the only penalty, the only goal of the game through a penalty.
But Croatia, that was another golden generation because you had, they got to a final in. Do you think, looking back, I know that you're younger than me, but looking back, okay, I'm going to call it out, Filip, right? Looking back, do you think that the draw, or however the group stage, however it worked out, do you think that just went against countries like Romania and like who we mentioned, Croatia, or because it does seem to, if you look back, it does seem to think, oh, well, if they play one another, only one of them will qualify. And then it narrows down.
I mean, it's difficult to say because, we topped the group, and in on paper, you want to say, oh, that means we get an easier opponent in the knockout rounds, right? But it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, Argentina and Croatia were both very good sides that qualified from Group H. And so either way, that was going to be a very difficult match.
I'm just thinking by the time all the teams qualify for the World Cup, the organizers know the levels of each team, basically, right? And I'm thinking, whether it's me just being an old cynic in football, knowing how FIFA bloody work, right? I'm just thinking, Filip, whether or not they realise just how good teams like Romania were, and even in 1986, Russia, that Russian team in 1986, how they didn't go any further was incredible. You had the old Dynamo Kiev of Belanov, Zagarov, whether or not, by the time the draw comes of the group stages and so on of these World Cups, I'm not saying fixed, I'm just saying allegedly, but do they make it more difficult for non-popular teams? Let's just say that. Do you think that or not?
I think yes and no. I guess I'll give you an example. For example, 2 years ago, Romania under 21s made the semifinals of the under 21 European Championship, and for the semifinal fixture, they put Romania in the afternoon in the hottest moment of the day, facing Germany, and it was with 2 days less rest than Germany as well.
Yeah.
So it just felt like UEFA never really tries to help the little guy. That's just a small example. There's more.
As a Welsh fan, and I followed Wales all over Europe. Actually, I really have. Macedonia, Armenia, Kazakhstan. I've been to them all following Wales. But yeah, I've always had that kind of the cynic in me has always thought, okay, because the population of Wales is very small, advertising and all that, which comes of, I do think that plays a game. If I'm honest, here, plays a part.
Yeah, it is in their better interest, I think.
Yeah.
To see
because England, for example, I'm talking to my colleague on the channel yesterday or the day before. I can't remember England having a tough qualifying group since the 1994 World Cup. They didn't qualify. They lost to Holland and Norway. But because of that, FIFA, with all the sponsorship and everything else, lost hundreds of millions of pounds because England didn't qualify. So ever since that, I've always had the belief that smaller countries like Romania, like Wales, have not got a hurdle to get over. They've got a pole vault to get over.
Yeah. I mean, I think we also don't help ourselves. We've often shot ourselves in the foot, but that's also a possibility in some instances, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to a chat. I know it's been a couple of wrong ends in the chat, which, shout out. Thanks, James. Hope you're well. Finn, thank you for joining. Dave, thank you for joining. Right. Dave said, trouble English players wanted Romanians in the draft. Oh, I can't say that. I'll tell you another thing as well, though, Filip. Before I come on here, I'm very close to a lot of West Ham fan channels on YouTube. And I went through the Golden Generation and Floyd Rodichoyu. I loved him as a player. Rodichoyu, I absolutely loved him. But I was asking West Ham fans, why didn't it work out? Because he was part of the Deportivo La Coruña La Liga champions in the early 2000s. He broke my heart, scoring a second goal in the Arms Park against Wales at that time. But he was a great player. So I asked the West Ham fans, why didn't he click at West Ham? They all come back and they said it's because he couldn't get used to the pace of the Premier League. Would you agree on that?
I would agree at that point, probably, yeah. But I think he also had some issues off the field, from what I heard, off the pitch with Redknapp, and some story about him going shopping when he was supposed to be, training. Okay. I don't know.
No.
I'm not going to pretend to be the biggest expert on that transfer, but
no one knows. It's just rumors because shortly after, I think 94, you had Dimitrescu and Popescu going to Tottenham, and neither of them really kicked on that. But as Alan Sugar being a chairman of Tottenham at the time, I would want out myself anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think our players always struggled in England. It's something with the lifestyle and our style of play that we don't adjust as well, with the exception of Dan Petrescu.
Oh
He
yeah,
had a
yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
assists for a wing back. Well, he played as a right mid as well, but a
How
wing back.
how how he didn't progress from Sheffield Wednesday, I never know.
Sorry, what's that?
I know. Just no joke. Sorry, my friend. She's cooking in the background. How damn Petrescu didn't move on from Sheffield Wednesday? Because I looked at some online before we went live. I looked at the top 20 Romanian football players, basically. And Dan Petrescu was about fourth or fifth. And I would have thought he would have moved on from Sheffield Wednesday. I know Sheffield Wednesday were in the Premier League at the time, and he went to Chelsea as well, didn't he? But I thought he would have moved on from there because he was a very, very good right back.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't like it when I say that Dan Petrescu was a Chelsea legend as well as a Sheffield Wednesday legend, because it was so far back then, right? But to me, he was a legend because he was in the Premier League Overseas Team of the Decade, right? The first decade of the Premier League, and he just had a ton of assists. He was so important to that side before even Abramovich, of course, changed that club's history.
Yeah.
So I think he has his place in Chelsea history.
Oh, he did because he was one of them, which I don't know if I think he may have joined Chelsea after they stopped the free foreigner rule. I can't remember. I really can't remember on that. But he was at Chelsea before Roman Abramovich's millions, basically. And Matthew Harding. I actually worked at Chelsea at that time. I actually worked for Chelsea at that time. It was the worst. It was one of the worst jobs I've ever had in my life. I'll be completely honest with you. Okay, that's another thing. But Dan Petrescu was the Matthew Harding kind of signing because Matthew Harding started pumping millions into Chelsea and they started winning the FA Cups and so on. And he's a very, very underrated player in the eyes of many football fans. And even after he left Chelsea, he done wonders for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate that a lot of talented Romanians who not only talented but achieved some things, like as you're saying, they were top assister, overseas team of the decade in the Premier League, trophies, and they're still not very well remembered, as you say, because of nationality, or I'm not sure.
Yeah. Also, right, Adrian Mutu. What's Romanian kind of right? I'll be honest with you. I was working with Chelsea at the time, right? And even back then, as an employee of Chelsea, I thought it was an absolute setup by Jose Mourinho. I really did think that. It was a complete setup. I have my opinions for thinking that. But what are thinking of Romanian football fans with Adrian Mutu?
I think he was a brilliant talent, a world-class talent on his day.
Yeah.
Very complete player, but the unfortunate thing is, his mind, right? And he didn't really care enough. He was more focused on driving a nice car and all the shenanigans he was up to. He hit a waiter for calling him a gypsy, which is, I mean,
I know.
It's the wrong thing to do.
Sometimes London is not the best. Sometimes London is not the best city for players to go. London can break players as much as it can make players. It's always been the same. Sam Greenwood is in the house. Hi, Sam. Dinner at midnight? Yeah. Hey, España. Right, right. Lou is in the house. Hi, my friend. Um, right. I tell you, right. Sam says, who is Romania's best player currently? Now, before you answer that, my friend, before you answer that, this was not a setup of Romanian Football Hub because of the result last night, right? I was actually gutted that you lost against Armenia last night because I thought, oh no, people think I got you on to set you up and all that, but it wasn't the case. But your qualifying group now for the World Cup is absolutely completely open, especially with Germany losing as well. So, who's your best player?
I'd have to say at this time, Răzvan Marin. He is a very good number 8, a box-to-box player. He used to play for Standard Liège in Belgium and Ajax, but they misused him. They used him as a defensive midfielder primarily at Ajax, and he also didn't quite adapt to the style of play there. And now he's at Cagliari in the Serie A, and he's one of the top key passes. He has one of the most key passes in Europe for this year so far. I think he was number 8 a few weeks ago.
I viewed, obviously because of Hadji, and we will get on to Hadji, but I've heard about Hadji's son at Rangers. What's your opinions on him?
I think he is a good talent, but he needs to still grow quite a bit in terms of winning more duels. He's improved physically, but he is slow and he needs to win more duels and stay consistent as well. So in terms of talent, he has brilliant vision. You can tell some of the long balls he'll just do on a whim. He sees passes that others don't in the team, and I think that combined with his two-footedness makes him a very good playmaker on his day.
Basically, like many other sons of football and legends, Jordi Cruyff with Johan Cruyff and other, they never build, the build-up they have when they get into professional football. It doesn't meet the kind of expectation, I suppose. Would you agree on that at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say, Romanians in particular for years now have had issues with physique and mentality. These are the two biggest problems. Technique, we have technical players. It's just everything else seems to go wrong.
Okay, let's go back to Hadji. And when he played for Real Madrid, if I'm honest with you, as a spectator and a football lover, I didn't really rate him, if I'm honest with you. I don't think he done really well at Real Madrid. Went to Brescia, turned his career around a little bit, and then went to Barcelona. And to be honest, in my lifetime, one of the very, very few players who played for both Real Madrid and Barcelona. That's in my lifetime. I know other, you can go back, Luis Enrique, but I remember it being a little bit of an issue between both sets of fans. But Hadji really, really stepped up his game when he played for Barcelona, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was the second season he improved quite a bit. I think he still struggled at times because of issues in the dressing room and some arguments with other players. And that's always been his problem, his temperament. I think he's always had the talent, but his temperament was very
a bit like I don't know if you know, but a bit like Lothar Matthäus. Lothar Matthäus, the West German Ballon d'Or holder, captain of the 1990. He's always had attitude problems, which, nowadays Roy Keane could be seen as another one. The kind of like changing room or dressing room kind of acceptance back then doesn't really hold. Doesn't really hold kind of players are so wrapped up in cotton wool these days. If you told a player to go where to go, he would cry to his agent rather than back then. You take it on a chin and you improve the following week.
Yeah, and I think another thing with Haji was Lucescu himself said this, that he could be the best, and he just didn't have the work ethic at that time until Brescia is when he started to really apply himself more. I think that's why I think he might have also failed at Real. But there's all kinds of reasons.
There's not many reasons. I completely agree. Well, I mean, okay, we'll go back to nowadays. And since we've been talking, I have been following you on Twitter, following what you've been putting up on Twitter, and I have to congratulate you in in helping attract an audience from outside of Romania into what Romanian football is what's happening in Romanian football at the moment. Now, the under-21s, they drew with Germany, didn't they, the other day?
Yes, they did. It's probably our weakest game of the three, but we did draw, yeah.
And okay, I'm not going to mention. Well, I have to mention it. Okay, last night's game. Before last night's game, I thought that there was a better opportunity for Romania to progress. Okay, let me come. I'll readdress this. Do you think there's another golden generation of Romanian footballers breeding or not?
I don't think we can compare it to the 90s, but I definitely think there's a future. There's a lot of promising players. The question is if they'll be this generation will be more mentally strong and adaptable. And if they are, I think they can definitely confirm their talent abroad.
So, okay, if you look back in history, are you assuming that? Are you comparing it to maybe the late 70s, early 80s? A few years before Romanian football started to kick off properly.
I would say if we had to compare it to that, it'd probably be like late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
In the sense that 2024, 2026 is a realistic goal of true performance. If we make 2022, I'll be happy. But
I'm going to have to take my my headphones off. My phone needs a charge up, so just bear with me a sec. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Do you think that I completely agree with this as a Wales fan, because it took us 20 years really to get over the change in rules. But do you think that the end of the free foreigner rule in Western Europe really hurt the lesser European teams?
Yeah, definitely, because it's a combination of things. I think you have, the fall of communism is a good thing overall, obviously, but in the sense of keeping the best talents, that's another thing. But as you say, the foreigners rule, the Bosman ruling changed the game as well.
Yeah.
All of these things affected Eastern European clubs especially. But I think the other thing is the commercialization of the big Western European leagues also increased the gap, right? So even if you look 15 years ago, Romania, at least we had teams in Champions League. We were able to beat top size Manchester United in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And now it's just a combination of the increasing gap and owners not investing as well. So combination of things.
Okay, so think of the future now. You're Mystic Meg. You have a crystal ball. Romanian football in 5 or 10 years' time. Where do you think?
I think the national team will be significantly better. The league, I think the league will be better as well, but never to the level that it was in, let's say, 2005, 6. It'll never be 7th ranked in the UEFA coefficient, put it that way. But maybe top 15, maybe that.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of traditional clubs in the lower divisions. Because we had a lot of disputes with legal disputes between owners and clones, and it's been a whole mess. But a lot of these teams are fighting to come back, and actually this season, the 2nd division is more entertaining than the 1st, in my opinion. So,
but you know what? But that's very similar to what happened in Eastern Germany with the Eastern German clubs as well. When they tried to go into the Bundesliga after the wall come down. So, okay, all right, no worries. Well, right, let's go back in the comments and then we'll finish off. Right. Oh, I know. She's not happy. Right. Right. Okay. I'm good. Right. Okay. SC Vids. I've never seen you in a comment. Please subscribe. Right. Mihaila and Dennis Mann is our best currently. Would you agree on that?
I think they're our best upcoming, possibly, but it's tough to say that they're the best right now because Marin, he's more established. He's very important to our midfield. I would say Marin is too crucial for us right now to say that these youngsters on the wings are best. I don't think so. I think Mihaila especially is a very interesting talent because he has only 5 starts at Parma since joining in January and a few substitute appearances, but he's got like 4 direct goal involvements for, a side like Parma who's really struggling.
Yeah. I remember Parma in the 90s before they went bankrupt,
and he scored a great goal in his debut as well against Macedonia from far out. So he is a very, in my opinion, polyvalent player, a determined player, and he's just the type of player we haven't seen in a while in terms of, like, he's not a typical Romanian in terms of the last 15 years. I'll tell
you what the Iordanescu, now, he was a manager of that golden generation. Now, I know that he was a great player in the 70s, but do Romanian fans think that he was a success or failure regarding what happened with that golden generation because he was in charge of them all?
I think he did a decent job back then. I think it's just a very good team as well, kind of boosted things, but he himself was a good manager. I didn't agree with the decision to drop Stella, who was our best keeper at the time, and Pruna actually cost us in the quarterfinal against Sweden with a gaff. So that was really costly. And in my opinion, if Stella had started, maybe, who knows, maybe it wouldn't have ended that way.
Okay.
But other than that, I think he was still a very good manager. And it was more recently in 2016, I didn't like his decisions. I think he was past it.
Yeah.
I think modern football had surpassed him, but in 94, he was a good
that can be said for many managers, and in my opinion, even managers like Jose Mourinho. But I do apologize. I've had messages saying, ask Filip, how has he ended up in Canada? What's his background? I apologize, Filip. I'm so excited because of this type of show. So come on, what's your background? Why do you focus on Romanian football, so on and so forth? Come on.
All right, well, bear with me here. So my dad is actually an immigrant from Romania, of course, from Craiova, and he came to Quebec in 1990 after the fall, obviously, and he met my mother there, who's Italian and French Canadian. So I'm actually half Romanian, but and I grew up in Ontario, in Toronto. So French is my first language. I speak some Italian. I speak Romanian. So yeah, I've got a very mixed background.
So you got a United Nations flag flying above your house, yeah?
Basically, yeah. But yeah, I go to visit my family in Romania every other year. So
No problem at all. No problem at all. Right, listen, we're going to have to end it there. Many thanks, Filip. Listen, I know you've only now started on YouTube, but give out your YouTube channel name, but also, more importantly, give out your Twitter tag, because I think if people connect you on Twitter, they can see the kind of avenue in which you want to take your interest in Romanian football.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate everybody watching. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us. And if you want to,
I know it's late for us in Europe. I tell you, it's late for us in Europe.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's ROFTBL. So Row Football.
I'll also put it in the description below. It normally takes about 24 hours for YouTube to upload live shows on Twitter, so I'll also put it in the description below. But please, guys, Filip is really trying to promote Romanian football, and as I mentioned, football is more than Premier League, La Liga, Serie A. And if you don't know the history of football, how the hell can you change the future for the better? Because I'm telling you now, in my opinion, I think Filip would agree with me, the issues Eastern European players, fans and clubs had to be up against before 1989, the modern day football fan would be gobsmacked. Would you agree with that, Filip?
I think people would be surprised, yes. Yeah. But anyway, I think, you have these dark periods and good periods in football. So hopefully our time is coming. If we mess up this next 10 years, I'll probably give up. But I think we actually have a good generation coming. So they seem more serious. So hopefully they confirm. I think one last thing before we go, I think you should take a look at Radu Dragushin from Juventus. He just turned 19 and he's already played in the Champions League and a couple of Coppa Italia games for Juventus. And, for a defender, it's hard to start a young defender, right? But he does seem to have a lot of potential. So we'll see next season where he goes.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Many thanks, Filip. Thank you for joining, and enjoy the rest of your evening in Toronto. Many thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.